You are very welcome to episode 36 of the Scaling Your Business podcast. On this episode, we are going to Denver, Colorado, to be joined by David Lopez. David, you're very welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rian. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to share more about the work that we're working on and dive into a little bit more about myself as well.
Yeah, delighted to have you on. I've not been over to Colorado. I usually get over stateside 4 or 5 times a year, mainly East Coast, Baltimore, Boston, New York. Been over West Coast a couple of times, but not been to Colorado. So why don't we start there? You grew up in Denver. What are your favorite memories as a child growing up there?
It's actually been a bit interesting. I'm a Colorado native, but I didn't really live the typical Colorado experience. So I didn't go skiing or snowboarding until actually last year. It was a bit interesting. I grew up, I'm the oldest of 6 kids raised by a single mom who didn't graduate from high school. And so, there was a lot of, struggles early on and definitely was very family oriented, still am very family oriented. And so, when it comes to, the great memories, I would say, just being around family and being able to, enjoy the 300 days of sunshine here, and being able to find my love for school and education.
300 days of sunshine, that doesn't exist over this side of the Atlantic in Ireland. We certainly don't get 300 days of sunshine. Might get 30. When I think of Colorado or Denver, you've mentioned the skiing. I think of, and I've asked a couple of Irish friends, good beer and good music. I don't know if my assumption is correct, but for those who, like me, have never been to Denver and they plan on visiting, what should they make sure they squeeze into a trip if they're to ever visit?
Yeah, so that's actually one of the things that I love about Colorado is not only between our startup ecosystem, but also it's like our hubs, right? So we have Denver, and then we also have Boulder, which are almost 2 separate entities that's thankfully only a 30-minute drive apart. And so in Boulder, you kind of you're able to get the great hikes and the great views and the flat irons, while also being able to tap into there's a multitude of breweries in the areas, great local restaurants, and then go to Denver and it's a bit more modern, definitely more urban, but definitely their fair share of breweries down there as well. And then if you hear during concert season, Red Rock's absolute best venue, I think in the United States for
Probably in
being
the world.
outdoors. Exactly that. And so if you could hit all 3, I would say that would be a successful trip to Colorado.
For sure. You mentioned you are, I don't know if you said you were the eldest of 6, but you were one of 6 from a single mother. Who do you believe had the biggest impact on you growing up?
I think definitely my mom. I was also, partly raised by my grandparents. And so, from that, it was actually an interesting dynamic, growing up low income with my mom, whereas my grandparents actually almost financed my childhood. And so, I had a lot of the material things that I wanted, but also, still going back home and still being on government housing and government assistance. And so it was an interesting dynamic that almost gave me the best of both worlds. I seen what it was like to not have much or not have anything and, see my mom struggle. But then I've also been on the other side of it and seeing what, having access to financial resources from my grandparents gives me. And so that dynamic, I think, really allowed me to, from a very early age, make the decision on say, okay, look, I know what it's like to have one, and I know what it's like to have the other. And I do not like not having the resources. And I do not like seeing my mom, who means the world to me, struggle. And so because of that, that means I need to kick it into gear and make sure that I don't set myself up, like that. And so there was definitely a lot of learning lessons, and so what my mom lacked financially, she made up with love and support, and to this day, there's this healthy dynamic of, I have a support system that I'm very grateful for, and that is kind of this background that, really keeps me grounded, but also keeps me hungry and motivated to not only have impact for my local community, but also to share the work that we're doing with other individuals that grew up like me that just need access or exposure to an opportunity for change.
Massive respect. I noticed the Kobe Bryant book behind you. I'd regret it if I didn't ask. Are you a basketball fan?
I absolutely love basketball. I'm a season ticket holder for the Denver Nuggets, hoping to make it past Western Conference Finals this year. But I mean, even I'm a competitor. I played sports in high school. That wasn't going to be my future, but I also bring this competitive nature, that Mamba mentality to business, right? Business and
Yeah.
sports, it's competitive nature, and I put in a lot of work on the daily, and I make sure that I believe in that work. And so that competitive nature, whether it be in sports or business, is a big aspect of my life.
Well, you say you bring that competitive nature. I looked through some of your socials in research for this podcast, and I noticed that a lot of people pay respect to you in your work ethic. Through that, you've managed to meet people. One of those people is Robert F. or Robert J. Robert F. Smith,
Yep.
a what you might consider a local billionaire to Colorado. Um, would you say he's had an influence on you, or helped you out in any way? Because I noticed that you've met him before. I think it was, you said you also got invited to one of his reunions, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I had the opportunity to meet, Robert F. Smith, founder and chairman of Vista Private Equity Group. And so, I was invited to his family reunion in 2017, which was actually the summer right before I went to college. And I actually, I'm glad you brought it up, because I do give a lot of credit for Robert exposing me to the world of tech. Right. So prior to meeting him, I thought I was going to go and study finance at the university. But, I was just like, all right, I'm not fully a numbers guy. I met Robert, and I had this opportunity where he actually, was exposing me, talking to me about data. And you can watch a few of his videos. He's plenty of interviews where he talks about data being the fourth, almost industrial revolution. And so for me, I was like, okay, if he's talking to me about this, I have to learn more. And so
Yeah.
after that, first initial meeting, I learned a lot more. I, was kind of loose connected with someone that was, starting beginning to run a startup. And I was like, I want to get involved with this, because Robert F. Smith just told me data and Silicon Valley and tech is, it's going to be the next big thing, as it was already the big thing, but I
Yeah.
just wasn't exposed to it. And so now that I went and I was able to get that internship. And then from there, my entire world just flipped upside down once I realized, how amazing the world of tech is, how amazing, Silicon Valley and other entrepreneurial hubs, Austin, Seattle, Boston, Boulder, Denver, right? Once I learned about the amazing communities, the amazing companies being built, and the impact being shared, I knew that was, one where I wanted to be. But that was also my first exposure to identifying a passion, and so for me, I knew how to work smarter, not harder when it came to school. All these books, and I have a few more that don't fit on there. They all came from this passion to want to learn more and really, really be great at my craft, which I knew, was going to be tech. What that position was, I wasn't completely sure, but I knew I wanted to be on the business side. And so that was definitely a big exposure. I give a lot of credit to Robert and Mr. Smith for that.
Shout out to Robert. For anyone who isn't familiar with Robert, his company Vista Equity is probably, if not one of the four largest enterprise software companies in the world, next to like Microsoft and Oracle and SAP.
So so they're actually in private equity. So they're the most active private equity firm in the world of startups. So they have a lot of merger and acquisitions under their belt. Probably, I think it's like 2 to 3 times more than the next runner up. So they're definitely in the space and active, but just more on the the financing side of things.
Nice. What's your personal favorite aspect of being an entrepreneur or business owner?
Impact. Definitely, the impact, because I feel very lucky, and I feel very privileged that I was able to earn a full ride scholarship to go to college and be exposed. I'm a big, exposure and access. I think those are two important things that need to be shared, especially around underserved communities. And I think I've been very exposed, and I've had access to a lot of amazing opportunities. And so now for me, the number one thing as an entrepreneur, I love being my own boss. I love, building and leading a team, but more importantly, I love impacting. That's what I'm addicted to, because I know if we can have this impact, we're going to change the lives of individuals that were just like myself. And it's amazing that we also get to make money while doing that. Like, it
Mm.
blows my mind that you can live a world where being happy, having impact, and making money all coexist. And for me, that's what drives me. That's what wakes me up every day.
It's easy to see, spending 3 or 4 minutes researching you, that you're incredibly passionate about what you do. One other thing you're passionate about is workplace diversity. For those who might not have heard of, let's say, DEI campaigns, can you talk through, one, what that stands for, and two, why you believe a diverse workforce, which I'm in 100% agreement with you, backed by many studies, is so important?
Yeah, so I mean, getting started on the DE and I, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, there might be a lot of, talk around like what is fair and equal, right? Which
Mhm.
is not always the best conversation, especially when it comes to something like, the future of work and workforce development. That equitable opportunities are what's important, and so for someone that, maybe is more on the privileged side, that had university paid for, by their parents, or they didn't have to work so much, or, they just had access or exposure. There's just a multitude of things that can, culminate into the word privilege. It doesn't, it doesn't always matter about skin color. It's a lot about, the background, socioeconomic status, and where you came from, what adversity you had to overcome. And so for us, when it, shifting that focus to the future of work and workforce development, at my own university experiences, when coming from a low income background, I went to university because I needed to go in, get a degree, and get a job that would help me move my mom out the ghetto. Right. So that was my motivation. But then I'm here and I'm going in classes, and, these people are coming in from partying on a Tuesday night. To me, that's just like, that blows my mind that people are able to do that. I mean, to each their own, but also I'm sitting there and these people are, hanging in class, from a night of drinking. And I'm like, I know 10 people from my hometown that should be here, but can't because of money, that would be outperforming these individuals. And then, flash forward a little bit, and those same individuals are getting entry level sales roles at these tech companies. And I'm still like, these people, I guarantee you, can outcompete them. They just need exposure and need access to the opportunities. And so for me, I was like, okay, there's a gap there that I guarantee that we can fill, that doesn't take 4 years and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And more importantly, we're getting it to the individuals that, of course, they deserve it. But then getting to your other point of diversity wins, and the studies are there to show it. Of course, I believe the studies, but I also believe my own experiences, right? So there's individuals that, um, you know, sales can be correlated with the word hustler, right? There's a lot of individuals that I grew up with. I'm a hustler, and I have people, that I grew up with that are hustlers. It just happened that I hustled school, and they unfortunately hustled other things.
Mhm.
Now they're still hustlers. They were just exposed to the wrong things at the wrong time. If we can get that exposure and say, hey, look, you can go and hustle, but you can hustle this other stuff that will make you wealthy, and will get you access to things that you never thought you would believe of, and it's all legal. And we can give you everything you need to be successful in that. Let's look at that. Let's shift our focus there, because those individuals have overcome adversity. They've, overcome the struggle. And more importantly, when we're talking with these companies, if they, they're making 50 calls, 100 calls a day, and they get hung up on 10 times in a row, chances are that's not the hardest thing that they've ever done in their life. And
No.
that is what companies want to see from, their entry level reps, and from our students, more importantly, because they know that our students know the struggle, and that they're working harder than anyone else to break that cycle, to, quote unquote, get their mom out of the ghetto.
I absolutely love this. I love this, David, and I do want to get into it a little further. But if we pause for a moment, so far what I've understood is you're passionate about diversity, about giving everyone, let's say, like an equal level playing field chance
Hmm.
at getting what they want to. Uh, Grew up in Denver, now live in Boulder. You've talked about the impact Robert F. Smith has had on you and your grandparents and your mother. You also have a dog. I think it's called Zeus. Could be wrong, but what's
Yeah.
one other thing you're into or passionate about that people might not know about you?
um yeah, so I mean, Zeus is, he's definitely a big part of my life. We got him during the pandemic. I would definitely, he's my pandemic puppy.
Yeah.
And I think beyond, and Zeus and family and everything is really just trying to live a life that one that brings me happiness, but also, brings me fulfillment. And so when I'm not, working on my business, I'm, just trying to enjoy life, whether that be just hanging out and doing nothing, or taking Zeus on a walk, or exploring and going on hikes. I try to have a life outside of the business, and, understanding that my work is not me all completely. Right. And so for me, it's, really starting to get out there and explore more, and, taking advantage of being a Colorado resident, and now getting out to do other things like skiing and snowboarding. I'm a skier. I've identified that. So,
Nice.
just, enjoying life, and, living it to the fullest. And, I'm very blessed. Being able to work on something that I'm passionate about, that brings impact. I'm can't say more than that. Is just,
Exactly.
living a good life.
Yeah, you referenced earlier on a few moments ago that $50 a day is probably not the hardest thing people have ever done, but I'm sure you personally have come up with challenges. So can you think of a challenge or an objection that you've come up against in the last 12, 18, 24 months that you didn't expect or account for, and how did you overcome that or tackle it?
Yeah, I think so. The challenge was as a team, right? So last summer, as we were the youngest team to be accepted to the University Accelerator, at the University of Colorado. And so for us, it was this challenge of, okay, we got a little bit of money in the door. Now we have to actually do something with it. What are we going to do? Now, in our plans and in our heads, our plan was to actually launch our first cohort this month. So the very first cohort was supposed to be launched this month. And, working with our mentors and advisors, and who have now transitioned to be our current investors, have, they challenged us and said, look, I think you need to test this before that May start date, because, you can test, and, or, you can think about it, you can plan all you want,
Mm.
and at that point it will be too late. And so for us, it was, okay, well, if we are going to launch this, what does that look like? How do we get everything ready? And how do, it's going to be ugly, but how do we get it to at least work?
Mm.
And so, I give a, huge credit to our team for, really pulling everything together and getting us prepared to go from getting accepted, and starting that program in June of 2020, to then building our entire curriculum, going through 12 and 13 drafts of that curriculum, and then finally getting it signed off by the companies that work with us, recruiting and finding some students, and running that first cohort in September of 2020. So that one was a huge, challenge for us, but, we were able to get it. And by far has that paid off the most dividends, because of the lessons that we learned, and the progress that we've been able to make since then, and improvements, and, student experience and investment where, it really matters. So it wasn't an easy challenge, but it was definitely a team effort. And, I'm very proud that we were able to do it, because that set us up for where we're at currently.
Nice. Something I saw, I don't know was whether it was on your Facebook or your LinkedIn, but within the last 12 months, someone's moved from a bartender or a waiter to now in their first sales role. Do you want to speak a little bit about that? Because that's a really cool thing that you've had an impact on that person's life.
Yeah. So, it was a very interesting dynamic, being that, we were identifying where's our target market going to be, coming from, was it going to be, diverse university students? Was it going to be community college students? But then, her name is Mariah, right? So we met Mariah, and we said, look, we have, this experience in hospitality. She had, one semester of community college, and then she just decided it wasn't for her, and she went into hospitality. She had, worked at hotels, restaurants, and then, was now a bartender. And she was, making decent money for her age, but, she just wanted that next step, but she had no idea where she wanted to go. And so she had even went to, school to be a dental assistant, and she went through the whole program, loved the program for it. And then within 3 months of actually being in a dental assistant role, didn't like it. And so soon enough, she was actually back at being a bartender. And so for me, I'm like, okay, look, I know you, I know what you're about, I know your work ethic, and I know your customer service skills. And that was the number one thing. And I said, let's try, take a look at our program and let me know what you think. And thankfully she was willing to take a shot the first cohort. But it was everything that I knew it was going to be. And one of the biggest learnings was she could do the work, and she was fine at it. The thing that was big learning for us was that we had to get her to feel comfortable and find her confidence,
Mm.
because this is a big leap, right? Going from, bartender to tech sales. What is that, right? And so, we had to, really walk her through it, support her. The other students in the cohort, they had their own sense of community where she didn't feel so alone. She wasn't making that jump alone. And so she was actually our last student to be placed, but she actually tripled her income. And so
Wow.
for us, that was this like, oh wow, this works, right? And
Mm.
so for us to see her triple her income was huge. But then beyond that, she also got access to full benefits, which wasn't something she ever had access to previously. Now that's setting her up for success. And then beyond that, the thing that we were so excited to teach and educate her on was stock options. Now she has stock options. Now she has some ownership. Now she has something that beyond her salary, beyond her commission, can also add to that economic mobility and really set her up for success in the long run. And so for us, that's all we want to just keep doing more and more and more of, because these individuals, they deserve it. And when given the opportunity, they make the best of it. She's in her role. She just celebrated her 3 months there, and it's been amazing to see her growth, because for me, it's like I knew it. I knew we were going to do it for her, because I knew that she had everything that she needed to be successful. And for us, if we did anything, it was give her the confidence.
Incredible. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that was through your current business, Gritly. Is that how it's pronounced?
Yep. Yep.
For those who may never have heard of it, what made you, or what is Gritly? Let's top layer. What is Gritly?
Yeah, so Gritly is a 12-week sales and emotional intelligence boot camp built to launch underserved communities such as women, minorities, and veterans into careers in tech sales. So we actually work directly with the companies that hire our students, collaborate on our curriculum, have interaction between the students and the companies and their representatives, and really set our students up for success within our company partners, while allowing the company partners to see how the students grow, develop, as well as their hands-on experience, to then feel comfortable to not only go through interviews, but also make an offer on the other side of the program.
What does the next 12 to 24 months look like for you and your team at Gritly?
So now that we're actually launching our next cohort. It will
Mm.
start on May 17th. And so for that, we're completely remote program. So as long as you have an internet connection and you're currently able to work in the United States, we want to work with you. We want to talk to you, and we want to see if we can get you that role in sales. And so for us, it's now just about expanding and scaling, but in a manner that's healthy, because we could just pump a bunch of money into all of this and hope for the best. But for us, the growth, and especially because, like I said, this jump from no college background, hospitality, all into tech sales is a big leap. And so that means, there's a lot of, sensitivity that we have to have with our students, and a lot of human capital that goes into this, that we really want to make sure that our students and their experience is really figured out before we rapidly grow. And so we're looking at growing city by city. So, like I said, we kind of have the best of both worlds between Denver, Boulder, for this, first ecosystem to build on.
Mm.
But then other than that, growing, like I said, city by city, because working with workforce development centers in various cities is, one connection, because they connect us to the potential students, but then also connecting to the ecosystems in those communities. So that way we can get the students, say, Austin, for example. If we were to expand to Austin, we would want Austin students to get hired by Austin companies, because we've identified and understood that our students aren't necessarily ready to take that next leap and just move across the country, mostly
Yeah.
because these, coming from low income backgrounds, family is huge for them, for us, I will say. And so that's not necessarily a leap that we've found to work. And so for us, that's what the next 12 to 18 months looks like, is growing city by city.
So, other than growing internally, the company, you've to me, it sounds like you've got to get two people to raise their hand. You've got to get both the student to raise their hand to express interest in joining the program. But you've also got to get workforces to raise their hand, saying we'll work with the students that graduate from your program. The latter. How do you get workforces to open their doors or raise their hands to you and say, I'm interested in working with you for graduates of your program?
Yeah, so it's honestly, it's really about pushing them and almost, depending on who they are, having a difficult conversation. Because there's a lot of companies, there's plenty of companies that talk about their DE&I campaigns, and we're pushing for diversity in 2021 and diverse workforce. Okay, cool, you guys are talking about it. Well, we have the pipeline for it. So now it's time to put your money where your mouth is and hire our
Love it.
students. But it's almost like, I sound aggressive there, but mind you, diversity wins on the back end of this. It's like, I have to sell them to say, look, hire from us because you're going to have better performance numbers, not because I say it, but because the data says it. And then also, if that's not enough for you, we work with you to ensure that our curriculum sets our students up for success in your program. And you get to come in and interact with our students and set them up for success too. So yeah, it's a financial investment. It's also a time investment, but it saves you money in the long run when you're not having to deal with churn or low employee satisfaction. So help us invest in these students, because these are your future employees. Let us know what we can do to set them up for success. So that's how those conversations go. Now, there's companies that are just like, yes, I get it, and within a 5-minute call, they're on board, and let's get talking to these students. And then there's others that we kind of have to push them. But I think we're moving in a direction, especially in the market, that definitely sees the impact and, more importantly, the power in diversity.
I think the fastest way to get any company on board, let's say you work in with tech companies, would be to say, we work with all the top tech companies in Denver. And
Mhm.
then no tech company is going to want to be left off that list if their competitors are on it, because then they don't look like they're supporting diversity. And it's a great way to
Yeah.
call them out on it without actually aggressively calling them out, which again is a tactic in itself. You are probably looked to as a mentor for a lot of people, and going forward, that list will only get bigger and bigger and bigger. But I'm focusing on you personally. Where do you go to learn? Do you have any podcasts, books you read, mentors you go to for advice?
Yeah, so I'm pretty grateful. So about 4 years ago, when I first, got into tech and got exposed to it, I shifted my entire Twitter feed to only following individuals that I aspire to be like. So that's different investors, different founders, different operators, all these different individuals that are all across the world, whether they're in Silicon Valley or London, Austin, wherever they may be. If they're great in their professions, I follow them on Twitter. And so, yeah, like, I read my books, and, I love Ben Horowitz as an author. And so there's that aspect, but actually my number one is Twitter. I'm very, very grateful for Twitter. Just because, there's when in Boulder, I was able to meet and take these individuals and say, hey, look, I'm a college student. Can I take you to coffee? And I just want to pick your brain for a little bit. Boulder supports that ecosystem. If I don't have access to go to Silicon Valley and I want to just pull one gem from someone, they might have a whole Twitter thread on how to acquire customers. And that would have been a better question than I would have asked if I had actually seen that person over coffee. And so for me, it's like being able to just sit in a big coffee room and then just see everybody's tweets and learn from them, as well as being able to just actively land in someone's DMs and say, hey, I have this question about this. Can you further explain this to me? Or I seen your tweet about this, and connecting these two. What are your thoughts there? And just being able to interact with anybody and everyone, whether they're billionaires or a startup CEO, just like myself. That's that community that Twitter brings. I know we're almost in a bubble in tech Twitter, but that's something I'm very, very grateful for.
Your Go on.
Oh, and I was just going to say, and then I of course have mentors and advisors that I definitely trust in, and they believe in me, and it's this really beneficial relationship that I definitely wouldn't be here definitely without my mentors, and very grateful for the Colorado ecosystem that is very big on mentorship. And so not only have I been able to receive plenty of mentorship, now I'm on the other side where I'm able to give it, and so pretty much I'm just this channel of like, I learned this from these amazing mentors. Now I want to teach this to you from my mentors, and I hope that that has the same impact that it had on me with you.
What kind of tricks or hacks have you discovered to keep you productive or focused in your day-to-day activities, if any?
I mean, one thing that I've encompassed from the jump was working smarter, not harder. And that's pretty much what encompasses Gritly, right? Is working smarter is attending a 12-week boot camp that's free for students that gets you the same job on the other side, compared to if you went to school for 4 years and spent all that money. And so, that's just the overall is that's how I live my life, is working smarter, not harder. And for me, that means, being laser focused and having, just a few solid goals and then working backwards from them, and then keeping the blinders on, because early on it was easy for me to lose focus and say, oh, here's an opportunity here, or here's an opportunity there. We've had opportunities for companies to come in and say, hey, look, this is great for tech sales, we want to use it for recruiting, or this is great for tech, we want to use it for energy, or but for us is we have to stay laser focused because we haven't fully fleshed out tech sales yet. And once we do, then we can think about moving on, but for now we have to stay focused. And so not only staying focused overall, but also staying focused on a weekly basis, setting our goals, meeting together. If we run into trouble, what is, how can we put out those fires? But other than that, if it's not meeting or putting us closer to our goals, we have to stay disciplined, and we have to, that maintain that laser focus. And so that's one of those skills, those hacks that I'm actively working on. By no means do I have it figured out, but something I put a lot of energy and time into, to trying to be better at my overall craft on a day-to-day basis.
Very cool. Two final questions for you, David. I don't know if you live with anyone. I know you have your dog Zeus, but if your property was burning down and you could only save one item, what one item would that be?
Well, so if my the heartbeats in my life, whether that be my partner or Zeus, are taken care of, I would say it's my laptop or my phone. I mean, that's what I'm doing. I'm sitting at my desk. If I'm inside, I'm sitting at my desk working, and very fortunate to live in a world where we can work from our phone. So if I have that, I'll take it. But if I have the opportunity, I'll take my laptop, and we can still build a company from there.
Slick. Final question. I want you to imagine it's 2030, so it's the end of the decade, and you're looking back on the last 9 to 10 years. And this could be personally or professionally, what would you like to be looking back on in the year 2030, saying that you've achieved X in the previous 10 years?
I would say number one at that point in time is looking back and being comfortable and confident, saying that I've been a great dad. I'm not a father yet, but I definitely want to have kids before that 2030 deadline. And so that's number one, is living a successful life that allows me to be a great dad. But then number two is living a life and building a company that has been able to impact at least 250,000 people, whether that be through Gritly or through any other endeavors, whatever that looks like. I want to positively impact these individuals, and not just in a way that I make their day, or I put a smile on their face. I seriously want to have impact on allowing them to have access to, and more importantly, be exposed to opportunities that allow them to find economic mobility. So changing their incomes and being a part of doubling or tripling their income, and really seeing the long-term changes that will have, because that the changes economically, tripling your income has immediate financial positive impact on you, but also it has long run societal impact, being that now Mariah, who tripled her income, is on 3 months now, she's a role model. Now she is somebody that her community looks up to, her family looks up to. Now if we can continue that trend and just keeping it outward, and just showing that what we do works, we're going to have that impact. It's just a matter of when and not if. And so I just hope that it spreads faster, because the longer that we don't and aren't running these cohorts or aren't talking to these students, the more that are falling through the cracks. And it's 2021. There shouldn't be any of that. And so definitely by 2030, I want to look back and say that I was a catalyst for change when it came to helping individuals be exposed to opportunities for economic mobility.
Amazing. Incredible. David, I wish you every success in the future going forward. It's been incredible to chat to you for the last 35 minutes. And thank you for being my guest today.
Rian, I thank you, and I appreciate you, for this opportunity. I wish nothing but, wealth and success for you as well. And if you're ever in Colorado, please let me know. I'll take you out for a beer.